Right. I think we were all probably in the same spot here in this game, right? All sitting here during halftime, figuring this game was gonna come back, and maybe it would be the typical second half where the Cleveland Browns kinda fell apart. Then all of a sudden, we get the word that number 12 was going in. I'm not sure, I wasn't following social media at the time, I wasn't sure if there was any discussion about Dylan Gabriel, I was just watching along the game time, I'm assuming like most of you were, and seeing Shedeur helmet on, talking with teammates, realizing that Dylan Gabriel was still in the locker room. There was a lot of fun things in this game from the Cleveland Browns standpoint on the defensive side of the ball. There's really just no question around that. I think it's going to be a party of three here. So we'll do all that. Come on in, Mr. Mike Keefe. How are you?
What up, boys?
It's always nice when somebody else can pop on in.
I'm never home when you guys do the show normally. Like I'm always on as part of Sunday afternoons. But tonight I was like, I got to join the boys for this one. We almost didn't lose, boys.
Almost. And I can see, and it's really hard to keep up with social media right now. And I'm usually a Josina Anderson fan. I'm not necessarily sure what's going on there.
Not on this. She has been consistently awful on this.
Yes. Well, and I'm going to even, I guess, obviously, the storyline to start with here has to be Shadore. And look, the stats are the stats. And I think we all saw some things that we knew were the concerns with Shadore. But, I mean, Ace Lavardane squeezes that break there. All of a sudden, this really became a really interesting point here. Look, certainly sacked, certainly an interception, a sack fumble. Drills one to Fannin where he gets a little bit of time in the pocket and just absolutely laces one. Pressed into it. I think that most of us who are trying to be level-headed here kind of believe when the Browns saying it's just not time yet. It's a nice way of saying we just don't think he's ready yet without everybody saying, well, why isn't he ready? What do you mean he's not ready? Well, why isn't he ready? He's been here for 3 months. He should be ready. You drafted him. But the cat's out of the bag. Obviously, this is going to be a tremendous storyline for the next 48 hours. Pete,
longer
than that. Because I think he rallied. Because I think he actually, after a poor beginning, I think he actually almost kind of surprised everybody.
All right, let's start here. The Browns fought their asses off and lost, and that's who they are right now. They
100%.
Fight. Like, for the people who get mad at me for saying I don't want to fire people, they fight to the absolute bitter end, and you can see they just do not have enough talent on the team, on the offense. Like, I am absolutely blown away by what we can say Shedeur's the story, and I'm happy to talk about that. The story to me, in as much as the Shedeur thing takes over, is Mason Graham, unbelievable. Carson Schweschinger, incredible. Like, the Browns defense is really fun, and you're seeing guys on offense who at least want to fight. But to the Shedeur point, one, I don't have a problem with Shedeur Sanders. What I have a problem with was charlatans suggesting a conspiracy theory against this kid for the past however many months, since April, that they were trying to screw him. And we're even trying to lay the groundwork that, he didn't get practice reps with the ones, is screwing him. Let's remember what happened when Baker Mayfield was drafted by the Browns in 2018. The game where he came out and the whole fridge thing and everything, Baker Mayfield did not take a single rep with the ones, came out and won the football game because he was just that guy. And at the time, he was the number one overall pick, and he didn't get a pick run with the ones at that point. So spare me. And that's not to say Shedeur won't get better. I think he will get better. And to be clear, spoiler alert, I think he's going to start next week because I just don't think you're going to get out of the protocol fast enough to get Dylan Gabriel back out there. So I think he's going to start next week, which is why I think this is going to be a lingering story for at least another week when they play the Raiders on the road, which is fine. I don't have a problem with this. And the other part about this, I don't know if they win with Dylan Gabriel. I'm not confident at all they win with Dylan Gabriel, given how he was playing. I think their chances were slightly better just because he was doing less bad. But the bottom line was if you were sitting there going, I don't want to watch Dylan Gabriel anymore, it's because Dylan Gabriel doesn't do much that wins football games. He just sort of knows about the level of everybody else around him. And when the level is as bad as it is, that's real bad. So it's not going to go very far. Shedeur Sanders comes in, he gets his opportunity, and I pleaded with people. This is why I didn't want to have him come in a game like this, because it was going to be rough to have him come in. Injury forced him. I get it. He confirmed every single thing I said about him coming out of the draft, both good and bad. But the few good, were he had some really good throws. He missed the one that absolutely had to have, where he had an open guy in the back of the end zone. I thought he was going to hit it. I thought that was going to be it, and everybody's going to lose their minds and be pandemonium, but he couldn't get the ball there when he rolled out. He made a great move, shook the defender, got himself open, and missed the throw. But his eyes are never in the right place. He constantly drops them. He's still playing backwards. He still takes sacks you just cannot take. The grounding penalty was egregious. And I say all this. I've watched Dylan Gabriel do every single one of these things Shedeur just did.
100.
But he did them all in the course of about 5 minutes, which is sort of the problem.
It felt so much like the Rams preseason game, where you got like, hey, well, what's the problem here? All right, well, just watch this 5 minutes. And watch this No, say real quick. Just watch this real quick. And look, again, this isn't a Gabriel or a Sanders thing. I've told you people all from day one. It's about April. It is about April. But we're going to talk about these guys because they're here. And all that being said, and even as bad as some of those things were, Laverdane could have maybe hung on to it. If it wasn't Isaiah Bond, and maybe it was Cedric Tillman. And I honestly, because I was looking around, because there were moving parts at the time. Tevin Jenkins was in. Stop me if you've heard this. Jack Conklin was not on the field.
What?
Exactly. But I'm like, well, wait a minute. Is Tillman hurt too? Because why the hell is Isaiah Bond? And I believe it was a timeout or a stoppage in play. And then all of a sudden Tillman came up. I'm like, can we at least, I understand the personnel is not stellar or world beaters, but can we at least get the top of what we got on the field? It's so much typical of kind of what is going on this season. It's when you try to get excited and the opportunity is there, and you realize, well, here's a reason maybe it didn't work. You had the best opportunity, but you went at it with the C talent, not your A talent. Roller coaster.
Pete, I want to go back to something you said before. You talked about the guys playing hard, and there was a moment that really stood out to me in this game, and we lived through the Juan Thornhill experience last year, where there was a Saints player going downfield for a touchdown, and Juan Thornhill was jogging behind him, and he got dragged for it, rightfully so. If you want to know whether players, especially the best top level players, aren't putting it all out there, you got to go back to the play where Derrick Henry was running free down the field, and it looked like it was going to be a Derrick Henry touchdown until, like a lightning bolt, here comes Denzel Ward, right? Everybody talks about leadership, but I think a lot of people only think of leadership when it comes to what words are coming out of guys' mouths. And that is such a small part of leadership, to be really honest with you, because when they throw the tape on in those meetings, it doesn't matter if Denzel Ward doesn't say another dang word. They're going to throw a tape on of him not giving up on a play, getting shot out of a cannon, chasing down Derrick Henry and tackling him so he couldn't score a touchdown. That shows you that these guys on a 2-8 football team are out there playing hard. They have not maybe they have given up on their hopes for a Super Bowl, but they certainly haven't given up game to game, week to week. The other thing, guys, if your opinion, here's the thing. Here's what I wish a lot of people would, everybody's got their strong opinions. If we go to quarterback for a second, if your opinion was swayed very heavily one way or the other by what you saw out of Shedeur Sanders today, you wanted it to be. You wanted it to be. That's the opinion that you wanted. That's it. You wanted to be able to look and say, well, he was 4 of 16 and he had an interception and he got sacked and all that stuff. Or you wanted to say, yeah, but look at some of those throws. Look at Harold Fannin dropping that pass he should have caught. Look at maybe Gage Laverdane could have made a play. I personally think that the miss to Isaiah Bond was as much on Isaiah Bond as it was Shedeur Sanders, because Isaiah needed to break that route off way earlier than he did. He was like slow motion there at the top of that route to come back to the other side. whatever. If you wanted to love him, you're going to love him. If you wanted to hate him, you're going to hate him. The fact of the matter is, Pete, you nailed it. He showed you good things. Sometimes he throws that ball and it's beautiful. And the way he can just kind of quickly release it and fling it down the field, and he hits them and throws with accuracy. That pass over the middle to Harold Fannin was a thing of beauty. I actually thought the throw to Larvadam was gorgeous. That was a great throw. I think he made some good plays with his legs. I think he did some good things. And then he showed you his big knock. He holds on to the football way too long. Way too long. There were a couple of those. You hit the one I was going to bring up, Pete. That intentional grounding, there was no reason for that. There was no reason. He's going to find out real fast. And maybe just getting him out there and letting him learn is going to be the best thing to teach him. He's going to learn real fast, though, that you go out there and hang on to the football against NFL talent. There's nowhere for you to go.
Yeah, the big problem you run into, I'm assuming he's going to start next week, and Gabriel's going to be out, or at best, he's going to be the third string. If he plays like this, if he continues to do these things, he's going to get himself hurt. And whatever you want him to be, he's not going to be, because he's going to get himself killed. He almost got hurt in this game. There was a point where he got up real slow because of that. So, look, nothing would make me happier than for the Browns to suddenly have their franchise quarterback emerge from the shadows and suddenly be great. But the idea that it was just going to walk onto the field when they have access to this guy all day, every day, and he was just going to magically be good wasn't realistic. And yet there were people out there who were trying to sell you this vision of reality that they were secretly hiding him to make sure that he was not successful. They were spending time and resources on this game specifically for him to fail for reasons that make no sense for anything. But yet this is what they're peddled. And I hope, as somebody who works at the OBR, I'm hoping people sit there and go, hey, I'm going to go to the OBR because they didn't try to lie to me and tell me this kid was readier than he was, or that the Browns were holding some conspiracy against this kid. Makes no sense. Like, I hope, I hear all about this crap about accountability, and hold on to that thought for a second. I hear all about accountability from
kids.
Talking heads. Where's the accountability on this one? Shedeur Sanders' father, Tony Rizzo, needs to be accountable for trying to get his son on the field for the last 3 months, and he wasn't ready. He clearly wasn't ready, but his father insisted over and over again, not his actual father, his fake father who works at a radio station and just yaps all day and tells how stupid the Browns are, has been telling you this guy was ready to go. There's a list of these people, and it drives me nuts. So if you want to hold people accountable, I'd start right there. They lied to you over and over and over again. That's not about Shedeur. That's not because Shedeur is a bad person. That's not because he's not working hard. It's because he's a rookie who's drafted in the 5th round. And I told you at the time, he's going to need a minute. He's going to need some time to figure this out. He has a lot to work on. There's real talent there. He could be a long-term starter in 2 years. I also said he could be out of the league if he doesn't figure these things out in 2 years. I think I'm pretty well protected on what I said so far. Now, the other part about accountability, I heard all about last week. Oh, Devin Bush needs to be benched. The stupid holding penalty. They need to get rid of Cam Thomas or whatever because he made a mistake. This is the accountability I want to see from players on a team. I'm coaching or anywhere else. I screwed up. I messed it up. It's on me. I'm going to come out there and give you everything I got the next week. I'm going to try to make up for it. Devin Bush, did it help that Mike Hall, or not Mike Hall, that wasn't that one. Did it help the ball get tipped straight up in the air and allowed him to make the catch and intercept it and score a touchdown? Sure. I don't care. That's the accountability I want to see. Guys who sit there and go, no, I'm going to go get one for you guys. I'm going to play for the guys next to me, which is what I see over and over and over again. Yeah, they make mistakes. Do you want me to take Malik Collins off the field because he jumped off sides? Of course not. They're going to make mistakes. You don't sit there and try to punish them for it. I don't want them to play scared that they're going to make a mistake. I want them to play aggressively and try to make plays. Devin Bush pays that off. We get that play. That's what I want to see from this team. And I saw it here. That's the accountability I'm looking for. I want accountability from players who are going to make plays and get better. And that's one of the things I was so happy about with this effort is I saw guys who were mad at themselves from previous weeks for making mistakes, come back, play hard. And it's a shame. I hate losing. I hate having to watch these guys fight their ass off and lose. They play their guts out to come up short. But they will get up again and play their guts out next week because that's just who this team is. That's who they are. And that is who the coaching staff is.
Now, Mike, I just want to highlight the Denzel Ward point. Yeah, 56-yard run by Derrick Henry. You're probably saying that Denzel Ward probably damn near ran 80 yards. from where
Yeah.
Denzel Ward was to track him down was 80 yards. Leadership, accountability, the tiniest things, and understanding as a veteran on this team, I don't do this, this game is over. And that is where this is the difference between a team that everybody wants to say has given up on the coaching, has checked out of the building. That's not absolutely not the case. Devin Bush turning into the defensive version of Derrick Henry, taking that ball back to the end zone, breaking 3 different tackles and getting himself into the end zone. Huge accountability, all big, huge things. We haven't even brought up Superman has 11 sacks in his last 4 games.
Oh
Which is
my
an
gosh.
ungodly thing to even say. And the thing with Miles, and where you see, and it's hard to say, well, it's hard to find where he gets better. Where he gets better as he's gotten older is he has gotten so much better at realizing, whoa, I almost took myself completely out of this play. Because he would go flying on by.
Yep.
He doesn't do that. Like now all of a sudden he's got the sense and the wherewithal. Let me clock this down a bit and just, all right, it's still there to be had. And, a quiet 4 sacks from Miles Garrett today, who's just absolutely unreal. Pete, we've talked about this. This is one we're going to get to from our messages, Pete, because when the Browns were down at DN this week, we're 2 into the practice squad. First thing I did is I hit up my boy Pete. I'm like, yo, your boy Aiden Hunting, I think he can handle some edge reps this week. The only guy who kind of made some sense to maybe, go slide on over. Did it pretty well. So just keep adding to the resume of Aiden Huntington right now, who basically is running the hotel and doing every position within the hotel himself. Great job by him. And Carson Schlesinger. How can we get Carson Schlesinger to defensive rookie of the year, right? It's really tough. You know what I'm saying? It's tough because sometimes the pass rushers only got to get 7 or 8 sacks. A D-back gets 3 or 4 picks. It's hard at the linebacker position. Well, this is now 2 interceptions, couple of sacks, probably on pace for 130 to 140 tackles. All of a sudden, that path for Carson Schlesinger to get this that I feel he so richly deserves, the one-on-one in the hole where he just dropped Derrick Henry. And you don't see Derrick Henry get dropped like that at his size. There's a lot of exciting things on this Cleveland Browns team right now. Unfortunately, the record is not one of them.
Well, with Schlesinger, I'm done with rookie of the year. I'm on Pro Bowl. He's
Right.
based on what he's playing like a Pro Bowl linebacker, and I think he's going to have all pro aspirations before all is said and done with his career. But that's the track he's on. He's on track to me. He does everything to check the box to be a Pro Bowler. If you're talking about Myles Garrett and his sack production, part of it is the investment that they made on the interior. Mason Graham was critical on at least 2 of those sacks because one of the things we kept running into with Myles Garrett is, and Malik Collins is certainly a part of this as well, is quarterbacks could just step up in the pocket and feel good and either, particularly a guy like Lamar Jackson, just take off. Well, on the first sack down in the red zone, they tried to roll out, and Lamar Jackson seemed to think about it for a second. Mason Graham comes over and just sort of shuts that down, Myles Garrett's sack. On his third sack, Mason Graham beats the hell out of whoever's in front of him and shoots right by, which forces Lamar Jackson to avoid, which then gets Myles Garrett to then collapse him there. So part of this is, without making this about TJ Watt, he's getting the sacks that TJ Watt would often get, which is not a criticism of TJ Watt. It's just there were times he would benefit by having Cam Hayward absolutely destroy people, and then he's just sort of there to pay it off and finish it. Myles Garrett has never really gotten the benefit of those sacks in his career. He's always had to beat it right off the snap. He's always had to beat you immediately and do something superhuman. Well, he's getting the superhuman sacks. Now he's getting the more expected sacks that we're seeing. I've been long waiting for Myles to get the 20 sack season. I think we've got a pretty good chance as long as he stays healthy from that end. But yeah, between him, Mike Hall getting a sack, Mike Hall tipping the ball up for Carson Schlesinger to get the interception. Like, we're getting a lot of production out of those guys. And like, this is the part where people, I get frustrated. People are like, well, the defense is sort of running its course. It's going to be gone in a year. And my thought process is, why? You've got nothing but young players on this outside of a couple veterans. Myles Garrett, I'm telling you, is going to play till he's into potentially 40 years old, as long as he doesn't get hit by a bus. And even then he still might do it.
That poor bus.
Exactly.
But like they have got like as much as we can sit here and be very frustrated with the fact that the Browns sort of left the offense the way it was and didn't do much outside of Quinshon Judkins and Harold Fannin and then some quarterbacks that were swings, not real attempts at the position. It has allowed this defense to be very much younger and sustain for a good while. This should continue to be good and get better. And the thing with Mason Graham, Carson Wentz has been great from moment one to this. Mason Graham, from the last game before the bye week through the bye week, has just turned it on and sort of figured it out. We talked about rookie wall for some of these guys. He's done the opposite, where he's starting to figure this thing out and figure out just how he can win. And now he's really, really coming along on that part of it. So, like, you get the Shedeur Sanders interception, the defense immediately comes up with a play and interception. Like that's stuff you're like that. And credit where it's due. Like, I would bet that most people thought the second the Ravens scored that last touchdown, the game was over based on how it was going. And they obviously had a shot at it, and it would have been great if they could have converted. But it was the amount of times the defense came up with something that sort of allowed this thing to continue as long as it was, that they had that shot at the end and just that continued to play through it.
Yeah, well, and you said it, Pete. They didn't address. Not addressing the wide receiver room is just so. It's to me, it's the biggest, most egregious, miss that was made. But it allowed them to do that. They didn't just leave it though. Like they put pieces in place that I think people are going to go in 2 or 3 years. Oh, that was actually huge that year when they took Quinshon Judkins. I mean, you watch what that kid does, and
give him some linemen, please.
Yes, and he doesn't have the lineman in front of him, even Dylan Sampson today had a couple plays. That big run by Dylan Sampson was beautiful. Harold Fannin just looks like a guy that's going to be a piece for a long time. So yeah, I think what they showed you on the defensive side is you can go nail a couple of these picks. Everybody's just going to be hyper focused on a quarterback because you can't really win unless you have a quarterback. But man, if they go into this offseason and they address that offensive line and they address those wide receivers and they really put the focus on that, this team is ready for real competitive football. They just got to do it. You got to do it. You got to throw the thing out the window where it says, oh, well, we got a wide receiver ranked number 6 on our board, but we got a cornerback ranked number 5. So we're going to go at the corner. Please just get the wide receiver. Please just get the wide receiver and let's fix this offense and let's roll. And I think it's really interesting because man, oh man, do I not love the quarterbacks that we're going to be talking about this entire offseason. And that scares me beyond all belief to be in this position. But just to see him play a competitive game of football tonight felt like just such a nice change.
Yeah, and the biggest thing we're in trying to be of complete fairness to both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders is there's not many quarterbacks would play much better for this team right now.
No.
This offensive line it's problematic. It is very problematic. And I know I spent most of the spring talking about it, and it was one of those things where it was, yes, okay, they're all healthy. They're telling us we're going back to the Stefanski system, which everybody is more comfortable. But it had been a couple of years since we had seen the best versions of this offensive line. So healthy sounded great, but, everybody's at that questionable age mark. So that really, became, issues. DeJuan, of course, going down again. You tried to make moves at left tackle. Cam Robinson goes down again. And here you were again late in the fourth quarter where you're playing now with what was, I guess, your third or fourth left tackle of the season. And it was nice. KT Levinson's in the game. 4 penalties on the year. Just true. That was nothing. It was like, the reserve lineman get in there. And he did get beat once, to his credit. But then you had Jenkins out there later. But they're battling. And, there's a lot to be said for it. Look, it ain't making anybody feel any better. But you want to be there for all 60 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, oh man, when this ends, am I gonna have enough time to get this all set up? We got a post-game show to do, and we're not doing the normal hour wraparound. I gotta make sure we're good to go here. Schmidt, who was such a hated guy after 2 weeks, all of a sudden now is pretty damn consistent. And they told you today all about the win there. Pete's got his own little gift for him every time he goes ahead and knocks one through. He's really quick to celebrate.
The absolute best part of this is that you get to bring back Schmidt's gay every time this guy makes a kick, and I love the fact he's good.
Yes.
Yes. And, just one less thing to actually have to care about. Special teams, who took such a black eye last week. You get the egregious, he should have never tried to catch it. But, hey, the play was there to be had. Jump on it. Get on it. Delpit gets it, obviously. Helps keep momentum going. I still don't think Jacobs was in the end zone on the downing at the 1. I mean, you can every time they try to keep replaying that, I'm not seeing a way where I see a toe on what's up?
There's clearly grass for Donovan McMillan between him and the
yeah.
Well, it wasn't McMillan. McMillan was the first one down. It was Jacob 41.
Yeah.
He's been here a couple of years. Just came up for practice squad last couple of weeks. But he even it's like, no, there's nothing you're showing me where I'm seeing what I see green between the white cleat and the goal line. If you want to say, no, it was there. It was absolutely there. And even when he talked to them, and then obviously they showed it because the entire sideline bum rushed Stefanski into making sure he reviewed it. Because that changes everything there. Because honestly, the way the Browns defensive line was playing is that could have easily resulted in a safety. But go ahead, Mike. I see you ready.
Here's what I want to know. We're kind of going all over the game here. Do you think any team has ever lost on a 4th and 1, tight end, fake sneak, end around, 35-yard touchdown run? Do you think that's ever happened in the history of football before?
Is that like tight end sneak counter? I was going to play call because we've seen so many variations of things in the tush push. I got to be honest. That's probably the first time I've seen anything like that. Pretty creative. And Mark Andrews is a good football player, but I wouldn't think, hey, Mike, take the snap, do the hokey pokey, turn yourself around, then run it off right tackle. And he went off right tackle, and as soon as he took his first 2 strides, I said, oh, no, there's nobody there.
He also hit that. He hit that like he was Derrick Henry. He exploded through the line of scrimmage. I was like, what just happened with Mark Andrews going down the sideline? There's no way team's ever lost that way before. That was great.
Well, I mean, I go back to when the Browns had Jacoby Brissett, and they used to do it wasn't quote unquote tush push. It was just Jacoby Brissett lean forward and get it. And they ran a jet sweep.
Show us your 6'4".
They actually did use misdirection a couple of times and ran a jet sweep or a toss, and then threw one that obviously didn't work. And then
I'm still complaining about that one.
Everybody
you yelled at me at the time. You're like, what if they hit it though?
Quote unquote cold was the reason he missed the wide open touchdown pass. But whatever. I mean, look, if they had kicked a field goal, it would have been great if the Browns could have gotten a stop there. It sucks that it sucks that they lose in the way they lost. You can't blame Jim Schwartz for selling out and trying to stop the run there, but obviously they got outflanked there, and Denzel Ward being your only guy out there is not a great formula. He can do a lot of things. Tackling is generally not one of them. It was just tough.
He's got a great comment. Can I throw this up here? Up here, Jeff? They should just have Aiden Huntington throw Gabriel over the line for a first.
That's not the first time. I think that comes from Mike Leach, right, Pete? If I'm not mistaken, where Mike Leach was thinking about
Mike
maybe
Leach
bringing in some
Mike
short
Leach
people.
famously checked the rules to see if he could have let's say little person hold the football and be thrown over the line of scrimmage in those exact words. Yes.
Standard Mike Leach. Standard Mike Leach. That was first page of his playbook.
I wanted to open with this, and obviously I don't want to make it a focal point of the show. Obviously everybody Cleveland Browns wise, look, Bernie Kosar, many of you the Cleveland Browns have been your life. Certainly that is not how my path led to being here. But if you asked me as a young boy here in New Jersey, what was the dude who was synonymous with the Cleveland Browns? That is absolutely Bernie Kosar. So, on behalf of the OBR, on behalf of everybody, Bernie, obviously everybody thinking for you, thinking positive thoughts for, of course, the legend Bernie Kosar.
I don't know if you guys saw it, but Bernie sent a thing out that said that his transplant is a go for 5 a.m. tomorrow.
I saw that. I saw somebody actually mention that in the comments, so I had no way to verify that.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that means all the testing, everything that needs to be done. If anybody's never been down this road, trust me,
Crazy.
it's not simple. It is truly not simple. And there are a lot of basically goal lines you have to get over before two people are brought into the back and start getting anesthesia and prep for surgery. So obviously hoping for all the best here for certainly one of the most synonymous names that there is with this organization at this point in time. You have
Yeah.
to believe, and I agree, Pete, because I think if anything, you just go ahead and start Shedeur this week because it gives. Look, Dylan needs to. He can't control his health, but now it's okay. It's been 6 games. Okay, well, here's the perfect opportunity. Soak it all in. Soak it all in. Give Shedeur this week. You see where it's at. Obviously, and I said over the last couple of weeks, I I don't know what you guys were going to do because if one of them was struggling, most likely the other one was going to struggle as well. This isn't a question of Gabriel versus Sanders, and because I'm going to be honest with you, if I got to take a stand, I'm probably taking the gun. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to stand here for either one of them. I think there's a chance they both can have a part within this organization. There is not enough you have seen from either one of them that tells you there is a long-standing spot for them here as far as actually playing the position. Certainly 2 different guys, 2 different storylines. So, it wasn't surprising that it was a little, things were running a little hot and a little fast when Shedeur first got out there. Been a long time since Shedeur has played any meaningful football. So certainly, but I really thought for him getting through that first couple of minutes where it was hot and heated, that all of a sudden he actually got a drive going, and it was like, okay, and it seemed like at least had his woosah moment.
Listen, guys, first of all, you got to give Shedeur a chance to come out and play a game that he is preparing as the starting quarterback to play. Nobody, you're a professional player. You got to be ready to come in anytime you get your number called. That's not what I'm saying. But are we going to evaluate a kid's debut on that? You can go back to Baker. He was the number 1 pick, like you said. Here's the thing. I like what you just said there, Jeff. I think Dylan needs to take a step back and watch football for a little bit again. Some of the things when we're looking at Shedeur and Dylan and all that, Dylan's supposed to be the more polished player to start. He's got all the experience at the high levels in college football and all the starts and all that kind of stuff. But one thing that I kind of expected Dylan Gabriel to be a little bit better at, even though I didn't expect the world out of the kid, was to just make the easy things look easy. Mm-hmm. And Dylan Gabriel does not make the easy things look easy. He's not been great at that. Everything kind of looks difficult with Dylan Gabriel. And listen, he's a 3rd-round quarterback. Maybe that's just part of the learning curve. Again, I'm not going to go too overboard one way or the other with these guys. But I think he needs to take a minute and try to get into the, hey, let's take the easy things. Let's make those look easy kind of things. And it gives you an opportunity. Everybody wants to see if Shedeur Sanders can kind of light a fire and can show that, yeah, he's got some downside to him, but he's got a big arm. He can throw the ball accurately. He's got the physical. Like anybody that wants to say Shedeur Sanders doesn't have the physical tools to be a quarterback, it's just a hater on Shedeur Sanders. Like there's a hater. There's a few haters in the comments over here that just aren't, you're not going to be able to say anything positive about Shedeur Sanders to where they are willing to put their foot down for Dylan Gabriel. I think that's wild. I think if you're ready to put your foot down for either guy right now, I think it's crazy. But I think this is an opportunity for the Browns to learn, and I think they have to take advantage of it.
I have no problem with rolling with Shedeur Sanders. You've sort of ripped the Band-Aid off. I don't think it's reasonable, even if it clears protocol and he's practicing Friday, I don't think there's a recipe for anything but disappointment for Dylan Gabriel. Given that they've had Shedeur play out there, I have no issue with the idea that in some points, now 70 starts between college and pro, there's a sense at times where it feels like false advertising with Dylan Gabriel in terms of NFL readiness, because there are plays that he misses layups that you're just like, come on, this is the one you got to make. And like, so good example, he makes that great throw wide open, but it was a good throw nevertheless to Cedric Tillman, sets them up. Oh man, we're in business. And then 3rd and 5, and you just missed the easy open out route to Harold Fannin, and it's not close. Like I've said, I continue to say, show me fight that you really want this job. And there are times where I just don't see it. So, you've got Shedeur. You're going to have the ability to give him the full practice all week. Can he improve? Can we get him more comfort? Can we get a game plan that's more fit around him? I'm for all that stuff because, again, they want to evaluate this kid, and this sort of gives you a easy opportunity to do that. Even if I would have preferred it would have been a situation where, Shedeur got the full week of practice ahead of time and was able to come out with, all the things that you would like to get a quarterback before going to their first game. But this is life in the NFL. You're the backup. You can go right in. Okay, well, maybe that can work to his advantage for this next week that he got his feet wet, as he said in the press conference. Can we get this thing going with other guys? And if he can't, okay, then Dillon Gabriel wasn't healthy and you can put him back in there. Now, obviously, I would like Shedeur to show well enough to get more than, a game and a half at that point. But it is what it is at that point. If he plays in a similar manner where it looks like too often a chicken with its head cut off, then you got to probably go back to Dillon Gabriel, as uninspiring a move as that is. But I want to see what Shedeur can do. I want to see if he can grow from it. This is a guy who is, from high school to college and everything else, he has learned everything by playing. So now, I think it was worth it to have him develop from the bench and everything else. I do think there's a lot he needs to work on, but he's going to get shot into the starting lineup, presumably. Let's see what he can do on a short week where he's got the access to the tape and can see this stuff not working that he's trying to do, and hopefully fixes it, because Mac Crosby and some of the other players on that defense don't care that he's Shedeur Sanders. I mean, the first thing Kyle Hamilton did when Shedeur was in was show the wrist when he sacked him. Like, there's also this element where people want to pose on Shedeur Sanders because of all the hype and everything. So more pressure. Hopefully he's up to it. Hopefully, look, more than anything, I just want to see the ball go to guys who are in Browns jerseys so they can develop. I want to see Harold Fannin continue to look like Harold Fannin. I want to see Jerry Jeudy get the ball. I want to see Cedric Tillman get the ball. I want to see some of these young guys get the ball. And that's been one of my frustrations with Dillon Gabriel, is too often I'm not getting those things. And those guys need to develop as much as anyone else does.
And here's the thing, though, and this is where obviously Dillon getting hurt, certainly not advantageous in any way. But this isn't the Browns coming out in front of the media and making a statement of yanked him off the field to put him on the field.
Right.
It's, hey, we got to play Shedeur. And unlike, because this is definitely something that was learned during 2023, and the first one was the Raven game, when all of a sudden Deshaun Watson basically kind of practiced all week and then told him 90 minutes before, I can't go. Whoever takes the first snap on Wednesday for the Browns this week, that is who your quarterback is this week. There's nothing you're risking. It's, oh no, well, I mean, our starter at 85% is better than our backup. No, if Dillon Gabriel is not ready to go Wednesday, that's it. It is over. Shedeur Sanders, it is your week. He's going to get all the starter reps, because this is what you've been doing all week long now for the last few weeks. So Shedeur, as much as he's not getting any reps really to go into the game, then this should stay the course. Then Shedeur gets the entire week of practice. It's your week. Next week, we'll reevaluate next week. So, I mean, just as Dillon got the opportunity, Shedeur may now get the opportunity and look, it's the Raiders. You could get a Miami game scenario where, the Browns end up with a win because other than quarterback, they probably have a lot of advantages at a lot of the other positions, and the game could certainly go their way. But it is a nice way to kind of make the move, but not having to rattle any cages, certainly not riling up the Gabriel fan base, certainly not riling up the Sanders fan base, by just saying, well, this is the way it's dictated. This is what we got to do. Or the response would be, do you want us to start Bailey Zappi? Which we know nobody wants Bailey Zappi to start. God. So we get a little peek now at Shedeur, and we'll see the rest of the way this plays out from there.
The argument that Mel Kiper had him rated so high is fine. He also had Jimmy Clausen rated really high. Jimmy Clausen couldn't play dead. It's a really hard position to evaluate, and even the best at it get loud wrong on it. So look, Shedeur Sanders has real talent. He has unbelievable ability to throw the football. But if he doesn't fix the things that he does that are going to get him killed, it's not going to matter. And if he does, then you have a guy who could be a starter in the league. Like, let's be honest to this. Like, and the thing is, like, Mel Kiper's not rating these guys on are they going to be good in their rookie year. He's rating on the long term. So he could end up being right, he could end up being dead wrong. Either way, like my only issue with Shadore is just people being honest about him. I hope the kid figures it out because he could be a really good quarterback and he's fun. Like, there's the one thing you cannot deny with him is he's fun, and I'm here for it. I'm here for fun. Like,
he's definitely has a magnetic personality, no question.
I think it should all just start with this, though. The likelihood of him being a really good NFL starting quarterback is not super high. Just like it isn't with Dillon Gabriel. They took two swings on a mid and a late round quarterback to just see. People are so crazy about this, and I feel like I'm losing my mind every time I talk about it. This is a team that has not been able to find a quarterback, so they took a couple swings, and maybe they're going to see something in one of these two guys, but you took a 3rd and a 5th round pick, and you used it on quarterback. I've seen much worse wasted situations than that, even if neither one of these guys pans out, because you got to try to find a quarterback. So they used a couple picks, and they drafted quarterbacks. The only reason people have such big feelings about all of this is because they're the only 2 quarterbacks on the team, and that's what it is. And because Shedeur Sanders comes in with a big name. Otherwise, none of this matters. Nobody has ever clamored for a 5th round pick to be on the field as much as people clamor for Shedeur Sanders to be on the field.
This wasn't going on for DTR?
I am a fan of Shedeur Sanders. I think he's got the tools that are required to be a good quarterback in the NFL. But he's a 5th round pick for a reason. You saw it out there in this game. You saw it. You saw good things. You saw bad things. Everybody needs to just take a break. The odds of Shedeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel being like the go-to franchise quarterback are low. They're giving it a shot. Then they're going to readdress the position, whether it's in the draft, whether it's in free agency, whether it's via trade, which is an area where I'd like them to maybe look. They'll reevaluate it going into next year. But like, I just don't think, and again, today swayed me in 0 directions. I have no big feelings about either of these guys other than I'm excited. I'm not excited for Dillon Gabriel to be hurt, but I'm excited to see a little bit more of Shedeur Sanders just to see if maybe that wild swing that they took turns out to be something. That's how we should be evaluating this.
Well, not only that, I mean, if your criticism is the Browns didn't address the quarterback position early enough in this draft, their options were Cam Ward. They obviously couldn't get him. And I'm not going to sit here and write off Cam Ward by any stretch. No. But then the next guy off the board was Jackson Dart, who I really liked, but thought he needed to sit. And now he's been in concussion protocol 4 times and is currently out with a concussion and had injuries in college as well. So like, yeah, he's showing flashes of talent. He's also like heading to a very short career on the path he's on. Is that really the level of excitement that we want? Where are people sitting there going, man, I really wish the Browns drafted Tyler Shuck?
Oh,
no. Based on that, like, people spent months arguing that Shedeur Sanders should be the 2nd pick in the draft, and they got him in the 5th round. So, like, based on the situation, like, he looks like the Browns look very justified in their approach. Now, that doesn't fix the position. They have ultimately still got to get it right, but I'm glad they didn't throw in their lots this past year. I'm hoping they're going to figure out a better solution because clearly going the other direction and getting, trading down to 5 and getting Mason Graham and Quinshon Judkins and Harold Finn and all those guys has been really good for this team, even if it's not showcasing itself on the record. They've got to obviously do a lot more work on the offensive side of the ball and specifically that position. But like, as much as like people are mad, are you mad about the free agency thing? Were you mad they didn't sign Daniel Jones, who would not look like this in Cleveland and wanted certain guarantees the Browns weren't willing to provide? Justin Fields going to fix the problem? Like they did not have the ability to get the quarterback this team needs, and fortunately didn't chase after it. Like they could have done we're a desperate front office move trying to protect ourselves and done something really stupid. I'm glad they didn't. I hope they get a chance to take it to the next step.
Here's the other thing.
One
You
sec,
brought.
Mike.
Go ahead.
The question about Dylan Gabriel getting hurt. There was a play late second quarter. He rolled up. It was Kyle Hamilton, a couple of friends, got thrown down pretty hard. Ball got loose, ended up out of bounds, but they had blown the play dead anyway. It seems everybody's kind of pointing the finger to that hit is maybe where Dylan Gabriel, and yes, sadly, Dylan Gabriel did play after that to close out the half. But go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, you brought up some of those names that got drafted this last year, Pete, and the board lit up a little bit when you started talking about Jackson Dart. He wasn't an option, guys. Should they have taken him at 5?
Well,
No,
the argument being that they should have traded up from 33 to go get him, which means
so you don't
Carson
have.
Schlesinger.
Let's use the framework. Let's use the framework of the Giants, which is, you give up that pick, which is now Carson Schlesinger or Quinshon Judkins. You obviously can't have both of them. Then you're both your third round picks, and everybody's gonna say, "Well, I'm not gonna miss Dylan Gabriel." Okay, but you might miss Harold Fannin. So yeah, at that point, you are down. Those 3 players. You still would really like to have, whether it's Quinshon Judkins or Carson Schlesinger. I don't know a whole lot of people are excited to give up either one right now, along with Harold Fannin, to then get just Jackson Dart, who's currently injured.
Yeah, give me hindsight too. I see it in the comments here. They had 2 number 2s to move up. That's Quinshon Judkins and that's Carson Schlesinger. I wouldn't trade him today for Jackson Dart. What are we talking about?
Right, and that's sort of the problem. Is like, you can, even with the benefit of hindsight, like the Browns did really well, and that's like the whole thing that you sort of get. And like I completely understand 2-8 sucks, and everything about this season is really frustrating watching that. But like, you also have to at least appreciate, like, man, I really like having Carson Schlesinger on my football team. He almost won the game for them in this one. I really like having Quinshon Judkins. I just like to have some friends in front of him who are actually going to throw a block, because if they can get those things right, I get it. It's deferred and frustrating, but they will be a whole lot better with those guys on their football team.
Yeah, and that's where you go back to the offensive line, because you see these runs from Judkins, and you see a 15 and a 17 in the ledger, and then you just sit there and you watch, and you're like, was that even 3? Oh, maybe he got 2.5. And and I hate it because I think he's taking a little bit of a pounding right now, and this is where the offensive line is just absolutely so crucial, because it is causing so much issues as far as being able to, basically evaluate anybody else, because even when they do something right, even like when Shedeur ripped it to Fannin for the 25-yard, it was like, all right, well, what'd you all do there? Because whatever it is, where the hell's that been for 3? Like, how could you just piece it together? Well, a perfect pocket, step up, 25 yards on a rope, and it was like, well, okay, well, at least you know what it's supposed to kind of look like. And that's really the biggest problem is because even when they get 2 good things going, here comes the really, really bad one. And look, certainly, Dylan's not really turning it over a ton. Shadore obviously fumbled what was recovered through a pick today, but I mean, all that was so helter-skelter with him getting in there. Because the one thing I think they are doing for a pretty decent effort is not turning it over, which could make a lot of these weeks even worse than they have been. You go back to the Detroit week, that's kind of what happened there. All of a sudden, you're a good team, and they just blitzkrieg you. The next thing you know, in 25 minutes of real time, you gave up 25 points. So the offensive line, which we all know, absolutely, seriously just needs to be addressed. And like, we can have these conversations till we're blue in the face. Mendoza, Simpson, anybody you guys want to talk about. Please tell me who the 5 guys who are manning the Cleveland Browns offensive line are going to be next year, because unless I hear some pretty positive reviews how that's going to go, it's probably not going to stink and matter what poor kid is behind them, because until they get it right and drastically improve, the amount of success this offense can be had is still going to be severely limited.
My favorite part about that throw, by the way, I'm going to go back to that. The throw, Sanders to Fannin, was as he was ripping the ball 25 yards down the field, whoever was on color commentary was going, oh, he missed a wide open David Njoku. And then they showed a replay, and Njoku was just running in the flat like 2 yards down the field.
He let his blocker go and basically took 2 steps forward and turned around. Yep. Wide open.
Oh, he missed a wide open. Oh, wait, 25-yard pass. No, listen, this Pat Shea just said it in the comments. Nobody likes to hear it, but this is it's a process at this point. It is a process because the quarterback that wears number 4 screwed up so many things for this organization for so many years that they're trying to get it figured out. It's why you don't see people getting fired. It's why you don't really hear people talking about that unless something goes egregiously crazy. And I know it pisses people off, but like you really they did it. I think they did a phenomenal job to put things in place for next year. I think the trade of Greg Newsome is a piece of that as well. When they bring in Campbell. And I hope we talk about this for a minute, Jeff, because I got such opinions on it. But like, I think they took great steps to being a competitive football team much sooner than what people want to talk about this year. They got to do it again next year.
Carlisle, I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is I want to hear what the offensive line is going to be before I can really have any expectations or hopes for what is going to be. There's a reason you have 2 first-round picks. You're going to have to use one of them on the quarterback. And Greg Newsome played a whopping 6 snaps today for the Jacksonville Jaguars before he left the game with an ankle injury.
They don't have to use a first-round pick on a quarterback. No, they don't. Has anybody even watched Fernando Mendoza? Did anybody ever see what he did before this year at Indiana? And then even this year in the Signetti system?
I watched him at Cal. I watched him at Indiana. He's not bad. I'm interested.
He's okay.
Look, I'm not going to make a firm opinion on anybody. I can tell you, I really like Ty Simpson. He's fun, but
Ty Simpson,
we got a couple more games in college football goes forever now. So we've got a couple more games. You know, I think Ty Simpson's going to do okay against Eastern Illinois before they play Auburn. But if he's in the playoff, we're going to see him in the playoff most likely. We're going to see Mendoza in the playoff most likely. Dante Moore in the playoff most likely, though. Yep. I think going back to school, you're going to get a whole lot more exposure to these guys. And you know, going back to the Jackson Dart example, nobody cared about him basically until December. We're not even in December yet, so hold on. Now we'll see where the Browns end up in the process. Is there a scenario where I can see Browns not getting a quarterback this year? Yeah, unfortunately, just by supply and demand from that standpoint, in which case they can go hog wild on other things, all on offense. But I'm certainly not writing off the quarterbacks of this class at this point. And I'm very intrigued, at least by the 2 I think will be in the class, but we'll see.
I can't get over my pipe dream of Tyson and Carnell Tate in the first round and just knock out your wide receivers right from there. And then all offensive line from there. And then, I don't know, work a trade for Mac Jones. See what happens. Let's roll it. Let's
luckily you can do that part first. Luckily.
Correct.
The Mac Jones. Yeah, but I mean, to just bring in more wide receivers here and, well, what are we going to do? Have Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders throw it to him? Because right now, none of us are comfortable with that. So obviously, again, a long way to go. And because, you know, I do think at times, and this is the part, Mike, where it's probably hard with the evaluation process right now. It's hard to get a solid read on anybody because the most rudimentary thing to offense, which is your offensive line, is something that this team does very, very poorly. Correct. So, you know, as much as everybody wants to say, and I mean, you know, I'll leave Isaiah Bond on the side of the road and I'll say it all the time. He's not really getting a puncher's chance here right now as much as everybody else does. How about Jamari Thrash not dressing today? That really seemed like an odd one. Like, did that seem like Jamari Thrash is kind of the nicest guy of the bunch, so maybe he won't give us a hard time if we tell him he's not dressing today? That really seemed odd. Why? So Caden Davis could go cover punts?
Well, I mean, I think it's an indication that the Browns are at a point where they are not giving anyone anything. Getting Tillman back, shorten your bench. And after that, after you get past Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, who is the guy you're sitting there going, he has to play? Really nobody. And arguably, that next guy might be Malachi Corley, who I think is a wide receiver 5 or 6. So at that point, how many guys you can keep active? Basically 2 more. So look, if somebody had a
Corley returns kicks, Lavardane returns punts. I guess special teams really did probably become vital to it. Yeah.
So I mean, this is the same thing with the defensive line. Unfortunately, with the Alex Wright injury, is like it's a real battle to be active on the defensive line if your guys are all healthy, which is seemingly what we want. We want these guys to practice hard. We want these guys to fight and get better. The other element that sort of came into play before this was Bond was out the previous week with a foot injury. Now, if you're asking me, would I rather on the field between Thrash and Bond, I'm with Thrash. Bond does the things that drive me nuts when the Browns acquired him. He doesn't have a whole lot of sense. I didn't like the fact that he took a jet sweep and then just sort of stepped out of bounds rather than cutting back and fight.
Right? Just dive forward, get the first down.
You're not in a game where you're down. You're. I think you were up at that point. Like, fight for more yards and try to win a football game. I caution people when people, he's a 3rd round pick. Well, he does a lot of things that will drive you insane, and he's still doing those things. As much as the talent is there, he's super fast and can do some interesting things. Like, I think he can theoretically stretch the field, which could be really interesting. And maybe that's an element we see more of with Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. After a full week of practice, we shall see. I mean, there are certainly more instances I'd like to see them go to Bond, but yeah, I like what I see from Thrash, and it may have just been a simple numbers game, but it does sort of send a message. You got to really fight to try to make sure you're on the field.
Boys, I'm sorry to do this. I got to cut out any guys. I got kids that got to go to bed, but it's been fun chatting for an hour. I appreciate you letting me crash the party here tonight.
There is no letting you, Mr. Keefe. You are always welcome to crash the party. One of the benefits of a 425 start. The
That's
unique
right.
stylings of Mr. Mike Keefe here.
Just go Browns. Go Browns, everybody. Go Browns.
Absolutely.
See you next week.
Absolutely.
See you, boys.
Take care, Mike. Have yourself a great night. Thanks for Mike Keefe for obviously popping in here. We're close to about that time anyway. Obviously, this is going to be a story of many stories. I think if the game had just kept on with Dillon Gabriel, I think the story would have been, again, why is Dillon Gabriel starting another game, and why is not Shedeur Sanders even being considered? Whereas now, I just have to think, if Dillon Gabriel is officially in the protocol, I think you just allow yourself to go a route here with Shedeur. Again, I think it's kind of beneficial because it doesn't feel like you're, choosing one essentially over the other. And, for the two of them in this position, and you see it, Shedeur, we didn't obviously see Dillon when Shedeur was playing, but you see Shedeur, he's somewhat engaged, trying to be involved as much as he wants it to be him, which is totally understandable. But you got the first taste of it today. And, I think Mike did make a great point in that. I think, a lot of people just watched that second half and proceeded to, stand on whatever their preconceived notions were. Look, it started slow. I thought he actually rallied pretty impressively to the point where I didn't think there would actually be, much of a contest late, but, there was a chance, and obviously an opportunity that there was. We'll continue to reiterate that there, unfortunately, are some really great things that this football team does that unfortunately just get hidden due to some of the other lesser lacking parts of this team. Carson Schwarzenegger is an absolute fantastic player. And I said a million times, if you take into account the fact that he only played 1 year at UCLA, you believe there's a chance for another jump in his ability. I never thought it would happen so quickly. I figured by like year 2, all of a sudden we would see this incredible. No, absolutely not. It's just not the way the kid is cut. The cloth he's cut from. When Pete, and we've harped on this since the day Myles Garrett got here, about the whole point was trying to get players closer to Miles's level, because you were going to get even more out of Myles, and you just see that with him now. And it's 15, I believe, at this point, with 7 games to go. Yeah, the only player in NFL history with 6 years in a row of 12 plus. It is absolutely. And the thing is, when Myles does play well with the losing, you kind of still get to see the smile. And, you kind of definitely miss that. You saw it a lot more in the younger days where he was just getting acclimated. But, man, when Myles Garrett is on an absolute heater, man, it is one of the more impressive things to watch in sports.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with this, like, I can't tell you how much losing sucks. But this game was at least entertaining. Like, I had fun watching this game, which I did not enjoy the Jets game. Like, that was a miserable watch. This team fights. They play hard. I think they should absolutely lean into Shedeur for the time being. See, hopefully he gets better. Hopefully, getting his feet wet pays off in a way that allows them to do some things on offense that maybe are more in his wheelhouse, to maybe extend the playbook in a way that, or stretch the playbook in a direction that's more suited to him as opposed to Dylan Gabriel. He can't pretend he's an athlete. And he had the one good move where he was able to get outside the pocket and obviously had a chance to make a great throw and unfortunately missed, because that would have been, the highlight play. But he does some good things throwing the ball, and I'm hoping they can create some opportunities where he can be a little more successful. But, the Raiders or anyone else are going to blitz him into oblivion, so he's got to figure out answers to how to deal with it. But for the most part, this is where I come down and go, I know how many people want to fire everybody. I sit here and look at this team and go, yeah, I get it, man. And the Browns would be entirely justified based on the record to go, okay, you're all gone. I wouldn't. And these are the games where I sit here and watch and go, man, there's some really good stuff going on. And they just need a whole lot more talent because of the Deshaun Watson fiasco, which they didn't get fired for. So if they weren't going to fire him for that, why are we going to fire them for improving the team since then, even if the record doesn't necessarily affect it? The defense is really good. They've got some tools on offense, and they've got a lot of work to do. But my overall argument boils down to pretty simple. If you want to fire Kevin Stefanski, you can certainly do that. But firing Kevin Stefanski doesn't change anything about what you have to do this offseason. And it actually might create more challenges. You still have to get a quarterback. You still have to build an offensive line, and you still need more receiver help. I'd rather do it with Kevin Stefanski in tow than the mystery box. But we'll see how that goes from here. That's what's frustrating about this and losing, because I do think the dude can coach. And if he gets fired, I can't really say, well, he shouldn't have been, but I do think it will be not unlike Mike Vrabel's situation in Tennessee, where people will regret it and be mad and sitting there going, why did, it sucked to lose and go in fourth place in the division a couple of years in a row. But, now we're going with the whatever Brian Callahan equivalent it is at this point, and then we're firing him. We're trying to get another guy. I suspect Titans fans are really wishing they still had Mike Vrabel.
And look, you can be if you don't think there's somebody better out there, that means it's a cop out. There's absolutely many scenarios around this, of course. I think you just have enough young players developing and becoming core players here. You have a star player here. You have a couple of star players here setting the tone in the Myles Garretts of the world and the Denzel Wards of the world. You're not just the quarterback away, because I think the offensive line is going to go as hand in hand as far as what the success level can be of the offense through the new quarterback. But I'll be honest, that's not the conversation to have today. If you come away from today and your conversation about the Cleveland Browns is Kevin Stefanski's job security, I don't know what game you just watched, because they played what they had and went 60 minutes with the Baltimore Ravens, a team that has now won 4 straight. And Pittsburgh, keep peeking in the rearview mirror, because they're going to lap you really, really quickly. It's going to happen. You're not good enough, and they are the Baltimore Ravens, and they just know how to be here, justified year in, year out. Browns on the losing end today, 23-16. Lighter crowd on a 4:25 start. For those of you in attendance, I'm sure there'll end up being 300,000 people that will be able to tell the story that they were first there when Shedeur Sanders took his first snaps in Cleveland. But we watched the game. We know there were a lot of empty seats. For those of you who stuck it out and went, to a late kickoff, certainly got something you weren't anticipating. Certainly a lot of coverage to be had, throughout today, throughout this week with the Browns, as, now there's this new possibility of yet another new storyline. And this one has certainly been the one that I think everybody has been anticipating all year, for good, for bad. Some of the guys on the radio, I'm assuming some of those shows next couple of days will probably be really, really interesting. So make sure you just keep it going. And I don't know how any of this is, losing sucks as much as Pete says it. And I agree, but I'll be honest, because I was sitting there and I got to my normal spot for the second half, and then I saw Shadore on the screen, and first word, oh shit, this just kind of got a little interesting. So I got Rack over in my little spot closer to the TV, and away we went. And, so for, either you wanted this to happen or you didn't want it to happen, everybody's going to sit back and watch and see the way this all unfolds. Of course, Mike with the update, it appears that, Bernie Kosar will be heading in for surgery tomorrow at 5 a.m. Fingers crossed, obviously, everything, hopefully goes very smoothly, of course, for the Cleveland Browns legend, Bernie Kosar. Everybody who came out today, thank you. The appreciation, for you guys show us here at the OBR is always kind of just overwhelming, and it is certainly appreciated. When you go to the OBR.com, make sure you look into the insider package, insider forums, ask the insiders. We're getting to that point of the year where, if you guys have noticed, Lane Atkins is kind of a little bit more. Well, we're at that point of the year where you start to get some ideas about some things in this season. So certainly, Lane certainly been more active here over the last week or so with some thoughts. So if, anybody who enjoys, parameters of possible off-season football as well, certainly have Lane here for that. And it comes out to the OBR streaming network every single day, beginning at 6 o'clock with Browns 3D, various shows tomorrow night. After that, you will, of course, have Barry, Pete, and Lane, Pete and Joe on Tuesdays. And then, of course, Mike, Keefe, and Fred on Wednesday, and then Mike later on Wednesday. So we appreciate you all for that. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Of course, you make sure you're subscribed to the OBR on Twitch. Browns lose a tough one today, but if you want to compare today to what you witnessed last week against the New York Jets, you probably can feel, positive that, there are some steps being made here in the positive direction for the Cleveland Browns. We will talk to you guys all soon. Thanks to everybody for coming out.